So team, welcome to Automation Testing Selenium with Frameworks, session 1. Okay, so there are a few questions coming up. Where can I find the previous webinar? Since it's an orientation session and it's a free session, even in fact today's one, you will find it. You'll find it in the YouTube. It should have been sent to you as an email with the link as well. Yeah, just check out your email. Email should have sent, kind of received yesterday with the link. Fine. But anyway, just more like a quick introduction about all the topics that we're going to discuss. But it's still an important, yeah. Okay. So what we'll do, probably, I think you'll receive an email today along with the yesterday's one and today's one. If not, I'll definitely ensure the team sends out. All right. Cool. So yesterday I just kind of explained. Okay, let me just show you what I did yesterday. All I did was it's basically kind of walk you through the different topics that we're going to discuss. Yeah, kind of explaining what we're going to do from all this. Today we're going to start with the day one. We're going to start with the detailed introduction on the different components of Selenium, and then I'll introduce to an IDE. Then we'll start with WebDriver. Do a lot of different examples on different locators. First is like installing Eclipse, installing Java, configuring it. Then we will go with different locators, and then we'll create basic scripts in WebDriver for the different operations that you typically you pick up a test case and it'll have different test steps. So corresponding to each step, you need to know what you should do in the Selenium. So we're going to learn each of them like fundamentals, and then putting together will become a test case. So we'll spend on those individual steps. Like for example, if there is a list box, how can I select an item from a list box? How can I select more than one item from a list box? Or how can I check whether the required item is present in the list box or not? How can I actually work with the overall list box? Like what is the Java technology, offerings that I have, like a for loop, how to write it, or WebDriver method, what is that it's going to help me to find out all the items in that list box. So all those things, as we are going to do it as an example on various different locators, like a text box, list box, radio button, push button, web tables or grids, and then we'll talk about frames. So we're going to do it on those different controls. And then when you put together into a test, then you will actually start seeing a couple of issues coming up, like your application and your automation is not going in the same manner or same pitch. Then you will get into some synchronization issues. So we'll do all those examples, and then you have some test data in the form of an Excel file. So how to read from that? How do you create data-driven test? And in web applications, these advertisements pops up will be coming up. So how do you handle exceptions? So all those things we're going to do it in a step-by-step in a slow manner. Then we will get into different frameworks, like data-driven framework, keyword-driven framework. Of course, we're going to learn the Java language fundamentals as needed while doing it. We're going to talk about JUnit framework, TestNG framework, and to do a parallel execution, we'll work with Selenium Grid, which at a time, suppose you have 100 tests and you wanted to run parallelly, splitting it into 4 different nodes, we can do that. For logging point of view, we'll talk about log4j configuration. And then I also talked about it's not just about automation and the frameworks. We are going to look at from a CI/CD point of view, continuous integration and continuous deployment point of view. Towards that, you need to know first, actually a very important thing that I forgot yesterday is Git and GitHub. So you need to know basically how do you work with a version control system like a Git, which is very popular today. How can you know, maintain your source code centrally so that other team members can access it? Okay, there's a question, how we get test data. You mean to say uh, from an automation perspective, or a generic question of how the test data can come? I think that's how it is looking like, not from an automation, right? Automation, okay. So if it is an automation, mostly you will have your test data being maintained in the Excel or a CSV file, or it could be a database. For example, let's say we are scrapping a old system and trying to create a new system with the latest technologies, etc. Then I already have all my test data in the old database. So it's more like reading from the database and then testing with the new system. Or my client is provided me the data in the form of a CSV file or an Excel file. Then you will read that data from the Excel file and give it to your automation. We'll see all that when we go into data-driven framework. We used to get test data from the client. Yeah, in some cases, your clients will be helpful, and they'll be, if they already have test data, they will give you. In some cases, we may need to prepare. There was an article long back. QAs testers spend good amount of time in not just writing the test cases and execution, but preparing the test data also. For example, if there is a like an SSN format that I have to test it in the required format. Or if there is a PAN number in India that I'm going to test it, I have to test it in the required format, right? So we will end up generating the test data. How much we need to know about Selenium and frameworks in order to get a job as a software test engineer? Yeah, so this is what I told right yesterday also. Don't just target on manual testing. Even though you are looking for a manual testing job, there are highly chances if your profile may not be get shortlisted if you do not have any of these automation skills in your resume. So it's kind of an important to tell them that I'm future ready. I do have knowledge about automation testing. I do have knowledge about popular tools like Selenium, and I also know about frameworks. So it's kind of, and they might ask you definitely. Let's assume they are totally looking for a manual test engineer. Probably, and then they are very clear in the next 5 years we are not going to do any automation. Then probably you won't get any questions from automation. But if they have, I mean, I don't think that's not going to work out, right? First, to understand that, let's look at one simple case of why an automation is required. Probably that will answer the question for most of the people. See, when does a company go for an automation? Okay, but just to close on that, it will help you to filter out your resume very easily. It will be help you to get the calls very quickly, considering that you are future ready. Okay. Okay, there are some more questions coming up. Okay, this is Shankar, by the way. This is not Karthik. So even if you have zero automation knowledge, that's what is actually these trainings are for. And a lot of people, like yesterday, I generated a poll and tried to get a sense of the audience here, and we got like 40% of the people. Only 20% of the people knows about automation. Remaining 40% of the people are trying to enter into IT without any knowledge, so they are learning manual and automation. The other set of 40 people, they know manual testing, but they don't have any knowledge in IT. Sorry, automation testing. So you're in. I mean, don't worry on that. I mean, my case, I have no experience in IT. So yeah, there are a lot of people again of that category as well. So there's nothing worry. It's not just a company that actually, most of the companies at this point of the time, they use Git and GitHub. So we will talk about that. We have exclusively 2 sessions to talk about basic Git commands uh, and how do you put your source code into the Git. Okay, cool. Okay, so there are few specific questions, like for example, sorry if I cannot pronounce it properly. I'll call it like Mehran. Okay. Okay. So not just that. Who asked this question? Jasveer. Am I good fit for the job? So do specific questions. Please write an email, and then we'll take it up on a case-to-case basis. We'll analyze you a little bit more. Just write an email to learn@itlearn.com. Okay, learn@itlearn.com. If possible, I'll also get onto a call, and then we'll analyze it case to case, and then we'll give you a best suggestion rather than like generalizing and say, yeah, you're 100% fit, or no, don't know what to do. So we'll analyze it on a case to case. Just write an email. The team will get back to me, and then we'll have a call. All right. So let me just explain you this before we even talk about automation testing, because a lot of people kind of in the form of migrating from manual testing, or some of them are just into IT, trying to enter into IT. Let's talk about why companies go for an automation testing first, okay? And then that will set a good phase for even understanding of all these things. Okay, let's assume we are working on a product V1. Let's say it's a very first version of the product that you're working on. First, what happens based on the validation that you're going to do? Let's assume you have some 200 cases, 200 test cases, okay? When I say test case, what to test in this system? Let's say something related to the initial. You can imagine any software, nowadays it's very easy to, because you're already working on many softwares and applications, so it's not at all very difficult to, even if you don't have any experience in IT, just imagine, let's say you are some e-commerce application, right? Think of an e-commerce application, what it will have. Let's say first you will go and create an account, right? So let's assume there are some validations around creating a test case, creating an account. The testing team of that particular e-commerce application will try creating different type of accounts, like giving some different personal information, email IDs, and trying to create different accounts with the different geographic locations and the different pin codes or zip codes. They're trying to do that. So those are what we are calling as a test cases. In that, they will try to enter some positive information, negative information, and trying to ensure the system works perfectly for all the positive inputs and responds incorrectly. For example, if I'm giving a incorrect phone number, then it will throw me an error like invalid phone number, or it won't accept it. So such kind of validations, you have 200 test cases. One is for creating an account, other one is like an updating an account, other one is like deleting an account. Somebody can go and deactivate my account. No, I'm not liking this software, so I want to simply go and deactivate an account. The system side, it won't delete, but they'll do a soft delete, like they'll mark that user as inactive user or a deactive user, but they won't really delete that user account, because we never know, any customer can come in the future, right? So that kind of things, creating customer, updating customer, deleting customer, making an order, making payment through different payment gateway systems, like payment options, canceling an order, after making the payments, you found a good deal and you want to go ahead and canceling. So all these are the different combinations that you need to validate on the system. And let's say you have some 200 test cases for that. Since it's a V1, okay, let's assume actually industry is changing totally in a different way. From the V1 itself, people are thinking about an automation, but from a simple understanding perspective, let's assume in the V1 is all about manual testing. So you're going to run all these 200 test cases manually. You means you and the team, like 4 or 5 testers who are working in the project, they all will test this and sign off. Okay. And for that, you might have worked in an agile methodology or a waterfall methodology, whatever the company has decided. And then, you tested all these 200. Obviously, since it's a V1, while testing, you would have identified good number of defects. Then your development team has fixed it. Then you would have done regression testing. All that went through. Okay, maybe after some good 3 months or 6 months of time, the project has been live. So let's assume this is live now. V1 is live. Customers started using it. Then there were some features we thought of rolling it out in V1, which are very important from a customer point of view, but we could not do for various reasons that because there was a holiday season coming up. So if we miss the holiday, then we'll actually miss out the opportunity for the business. So we rolled out during the Christmas or like, whatever the holiday season that was coming up. Now the holiday season is over and we have identified there was some scalable issues because with the offers that we made, there are a number of people registered with it, and we are not really scaling the way we wanted to scale. So there are some scalable issues. There were some availability issues. Actually, we were down for some time because of the availability issues, and there are a lot of UI issues customers reported, and there were some incorrect transactions also recorded. So there was some good amount of work that we wanted to do. Along with, we wanted to do some enhancements. So your project manager or product owner is going to plan 2.0. Okay, at least for the next upcoming holiday season that we are coming up, we should be fixing all these things and ready in a better way. So that's like a V2.0. Very specific to 2.0. What are the features that you want to roll out? What are the enhancements that you wanted to roll out? Let us assume you have 50 test cases. Okay, let's assume that's only 5 features that we wanted to roll out and 50 new test cases that you're coming up. Just answer me one question. In V2.0, are you going to test only these 50 test cases, or are you going to do anything else? Is it sufficient to just test these 50 test cases, or do we need to do anything more? Okay, there are different answers coming up. Somebody saying, no, we need to test this 200 also and this 50 also, which is like 250 test cases. Somebody is saying regression testing. I'll just quickly define what is that. And somebody said, no, this 50, and we have to pick up some impacted ones from this. And there are few people just saying only 50. Okay, so it's a good mix of audience. Again, no surprise, because there are somebody is totally new into IT and there are somebody who already knows manual testing. So it's definitely not just this 50, for the reasons that while making the changes to some of these enhancements that you're going to do in the 2.0, they will have an impact on some of the features that we have already delivered in 1.0. Okay. For example, let's say we are adding this feature, it's related to the orders. So there is a chance the component or a module we delivered in V1.0 with respect to orders will get an impacted because of this enhancement. And we are adding some more feature related to reports. So that's get impact on the reports module that we have delivered in 1.0. So what happens is like 50, definitely this 50 needs to go. There is no doubt. But from this 200, now what will happen is that along with adding of some of the features, we realized some feature, I'm not just explaining what is that, but there is some feature, let's say, we realized that it's actually not a very important feature. No customers are using it. So we wanted to delete that also in this. So some feature might be deleted, some feature might be added totally new, some feature might be modified. So as a result of that, there could be some test cases will be removed from this 200. There could be some modification to this 200, and there could be some addition of the test cases. So these three things will result in the 2.0 testing. For a simplicity, let's understand, out of these 200, there are 100 getting impacted. So you need to test this 100 plus 50, 150. Sometimes if all the components are getting impacted, then we have to test, as some of you said, all these 200 plus 50. But if only 100 getting impacted, then you do, I mean, there's another problem now. People are actually doing like this as a manager and leaders, we are expected to ensure the team is not doing an over testing. There is something called over testing. Even though this 200 is not required, if the team is actually doing 200 and wasting a lot of time, and we are dealing this, as a manager, I should ensure what is their strategy and why they are picking up 200, why not they are just picking up 100 which are impacted. So we know we should not do over testing and we should not do under testing. We should do the right amount of testing by identifying the impacted test cases only to be run. So that resulted in 150 test cases. Okay, this is what is going to happen in V2. And the same story continues in the future when you go for V3. Again, there will be some new cases. Let's assume some 60 cases. By now, our suite has 230 cases, let's assume. From this 230, again, you'll identify there are 150 cases are impacting. So you will run 150 plus this 60. So 210 cases. So like this, you will do it for every release, an impact analysis from the existing test cases, how many will have an impact and how many I need to do and how many new cases. Now this is, for example, if you are very clear, if your company is very clear, after V3, we will stop this product. The purpose of this product is only till V3, because after that we have a different plan to do altogether a different business. Then it's actually good enough to just go with only manual testing. There's no point in investing in automation. There's no point in really buying, kind of going for a tool, recruiting an automation test engineers, and then, doing an automation. All that is like really not going to give you something called return on investment. So again, as a leaders, we are expected to calculate this return on investment before taking any decision for an automation. I should have a clear calculation and explain to my business that I wanted to take this automation because here is the ROI that I'm going to get from it. So when I say return on investment, because we are making an investment with respect to automation testers, the tool, the development, frameworks, automation, but I'm not going to get any benefit out of it. The best thing is to go with manual testing because I'm going to stop this product after this. If you have that clarity, then better don't do automation. But you have a long-term plan that this product is going to go into multiple, for example, Amazon.com or eBay.com or any of these products, right? They might have started like this, but of course they might have gone through total, revamping of the entire website and completely modifying the website. But still, it's the test cases that you prepared on the V1 version, still some of at least like 10% of them might be still valid today, right? So if you look into those kind of products and any e-commerce product or any in general product, maybe something related to healthcare, insurance, then what happens naturally as you are going from V1 to V2 to V3, V4, Vn, now look at the amount of time that you are going to spend on regression testing. And especially these, so what is regression testing? These impacted ones you are picking, right? 100 from here, 150 from here, and then again you will pick up something in the next version. These are regression testing cases. New test cases, anyway, you are writing it newly now. So if you're doing a manual testing, it's okay. But what about these cases? These cases are written in V1. Why could I have not automated that? If you could have automated that, now what is the benefit of automating this, right? Let's assume on an average, a tester can execute 20 test cases per day. I'm just throwing some random number, considering simple, medium, and complex test cases. So if I have to run 20 test cases per day to execute these 500 test cases, I would need 5 days, 5 working days. Whereas this 50 new test cases, I would need some 2.5 days or 3 days, right? So totally I would need 3 days plus 5 days, 8 days of testing efforts to sign off 2.0. And when it comes to 3.0, new test cases 3 days, and this would be about 8 days. So I would need around 11 days of testing efforts. Now, when I'm actually moving from V1 to V2 to V3, the features are reducing, but my number of days are increasing. Here it is 8 days and here it is 11 days. Ideally, it should be the other way. The number of days should also reduce. And that can happen only when you think of some automation and when you do some automation. Now, what you should do, or what is a company that planning to do, is these 100 test cases and 150 test cases, which are regression, if you invest in automation and if you do an automation before 2.0 comes into picture, when the 2.0 gets released, only these 50 test cases you can do manually, and these 100 test cases, even you targeted for 100 but you automated only 80 test cases, even then you're a good percentage, right? So 80 test cases, you will run it parallelly in automation, and this 50 plus 20, only 70 cases you're going to do manually, which is like 4 days. So that means in a 4 days of time, running parallelly automation and manual, you're able to take a decision whether I'm going to sign off or not sign off, cutting down the number of days by 50%. And the same thing when you do try to target of automating these 150 cases, but you ended up only automating 120 cases, still a good deal. Instead of 11 days, you will actually sign off maybe in like 6 days. So that's the, but again, that all depends on the calculation of this ROI. These 4 days that I'm going to save with a manual testing, if it is less than what I'm going to do in automation investment, tool investment, and the people investment, and it's not just 4 days here. So you need to calculate for at least it's going to go for next 4 or 5 years. And in that 4 or 5 years, I'm going to run like 20 times this regression. So 20 into 4, 80 days of manual efforts per hour billing, 8 hours billing into 20 days. If you calculate, and if that is better than doing a manual testing, then your ROI is better, at least equal and better, right? So that is when people go for automation. And again, automation is not easy. Like it's not just about choosing the tool and doing a development. The major challenge that comes in automation is maintenance of the scripts. You need to consistently ensure for any change that is happening on the product from the development side, you're also able to fix it from your automation side and making it ready. There's a lot of discussion going on in the industry and people are already doing this. Why can't we even think of an automation from V1 itself? When my project is in development itself, I'll start automate it. It is possible. It is possible, but you need to be like really need to know how your UI is going to come, what technology they're going to use. Okay, stability problem means let's say, okay, I automated something from V1, right? And in V2, that UI is changing. So previously it was a customer ID, now they made it something else. Or previously it was a submit button, now it's a proceed button. So my automation is going to look for submit button and then it come over here, it don't find the button, then it will fail. So, and also sometimes what happens, this V1 was on a particular browser version and we are trying to run V2 on a different browser version, and there are some issues from the Selenium tool perspective itself. So we need to fix all those basic issues. And that is what is like maintaining it. Okay, it could be a change in the UI can result in the failure of the automation, change in the technology side, all those things keeps coming up, and continuously we need to maintain it. So is it clear like why generally companies pick up an automation and why somebody needs to learn an automation? Because I don't want to hear that question as after we start automation. It's better to be clear before we get into it. So mostly our job is to identify the test cases which are regression testable ones, impacted ones, and then we will go on automating them. For example, if there are some test cases, ideally, like again, generally people do this analysis, automation feasibility study, what to automate and what to not automate, right? If you are going to automate something that you are going to use only once, then there is, again, you are not going to get an ROI. For example, there is a settings component, and the settings component, if I just go to the settings and make one-time settings, it's good enough. I'm not going to touch that again. Then better don't automate it, because your job is, it's just like, but again, if the settings are some of the settings that I'm going to frequently change it, then you should automate it. So it's like one time versus multiple times. You should pick up a test case, and is this test case is going to be used only once or multiple times? If it is once, better don't automate. Once or twice or thrice, also better don't automate. But every time that we are going to run it is definitely be automation candidate. If you're not sure about it, park it aside, and over a period of time, you gain the experience on the system. Oh, this particular test case is coming up again and again, so better I should automate. So that's how we are going to identify automation candidates from the test cases. Okay, so this is what we're going to do, and at the end of it, after we develop the code and all, we're going to import it in Git and GitHub. Along with this, we're going to do Maven integration testing, Jenkins integration, and then there are kind of flavors of testing like test-driven development, behavior-driven development. And when it comes to behavior-driven development, there are tools like Cucumber. So we're going to talk all of those. And the best example to somebody can extend Selenium, it's an open source and people can actually develop on top of that, is a robot framework. And AnyAUT, a tool that is developed by Karthik and the team, part of the Workers INC. This is also extending the Selenium library. A tool is being developed, used for manual testing and automation testing, and there are some clients already using this. So these are some of the examples to talk about how somebody can extend the Selenium libraries and go. You might have even heard about recently something called Catalan Studio. I'm not going to explain the whole tool, but these are some of the examples how people are actually extending the tool. So these three, whatever I've explained, it's only just to give you an idea about what those tools are. Okay. Cool. So with this, let's get into a detailed introduction. That's a day one component, detailed introduction about Selenium, trying to understand what is 1.0, 2.0, and 3.0 components. Right now, if you wanted to know which version that we are in, all you have to do is just go to seleniumhq.org. This is the main website for the Selenium. And I told you it's an open source. That means it's a free of cost. Anybody can use this software. That's why you see something option called donate to Selenium here. So some companies, organizations, enterprises who will get benefit of this will obviously go donate it, because they would encourage the teams to come up with new features and help them. There are a lot of commercial tools out, like QTP UFT or Microsoft VSTS or Rational Robo from IBM, which are very costly tools. And if things are done from you with the free of cost, and ideally you want to donate to the community, and community gets encouragement and they'll do more work in doing that. So that's the option here. So when it comes to Selenium, the latest version, as you can see, this is the latest version, 3.141.59. This is the one we're going to pick it up. And these are the different languages it supports. So again, I've explained yesterday how to pick up this language, or how company pick up this language. One is mostly depending on the development team. If the development team is using Java, they'll mostly go with Java. If the development team is on C#, they'll go with C#, because they don't want to get into any of those integration issues, and you have an in-house knowledge already there. If you get into any issue, people there to help you. But don't worry, I mean, now the community is so big, just go paste it on the Google, you will get a help if you get stuck somewhere. Okay, so it's this story, like whether the help available, not available, was a question 10 years back. And these are all, no, we have to wait and see. I've not heard anything there. It is good. I mean, the team is developing. So for the last 7-8 years, they're very active. Selenium is getting developed. And these, you can see, like, these companies are coming and trying to kind of do their advertisement here. These are commercial tools. For example, Micro Focus. Micro Focus is a company who takes care of these QTP UFT now, load runner, ALM, HPALM, HPALM. So all the HP tools are taken over by Micro Focus. And this Micro Focus focuses on these commercial tools, functional testing tool, load testing tool, management tool. Why they are coming and trying to do an advertisement here? For the reason that, like, there are a lot of people coming and watching this website, and it's not that everybody wants to go with an open source tool. Some very big enterprises probably wants to go with commercial tools. Like, there's a nice way to put their advertisement here. And people, I'm sure you might have heard about this Browser Stack and Sauce Labs, right? Browser Stack is a company which is a cloud-based company which will offer different browsers for you to connect it and test it. For example, I developed my Selenium script, but I need to test my Selenium script on many different browsers. I need to test it on IE, I need to test it on Chrome, I need to test it on Firefox, I need to test it on Safari, because I have a client base, my product client base is on all of them. Then I need to test it on different versions of them. So one way that I can do is have that many machines and those many browsers installed on all these machines and test it, which is a very costly effort. Rather, I'll go to these browser stack and create an account, and I will say these are all my needs. These are the different browsers I need, and they'll allocate the browsers for me. And I'll connect my Selenium. So we'll see how to run your Selenium script on cloud premises also. So what you do, you connect your Selenium script remotely to this browser stack account, and then you'll run it on different browsers. Same way, Sauce Labs will give you different machines for testing point of view, and different mobile testing point of view. Also, there are where you can connect to the different versions of Android and uh, iOS devices. Because one way you buy all those devices and test it on a simulators, at least on simulators, or actually devices. So you cannot really buy on all those devices. So best is uh, go for these companies and just rent out those for some time and done with your testing. So this is another thing like expiry test, which is Selenium for mobile. So basically they would have used these Android and Appium libraries that are available in Selenium, and they would have written some wrapper. I'm not experienced, to be frank. So they would have written a wrapper on top of it, but I'm familiar with browser stacks, Sauce Labs. I'm familiar with cross-browser testing, Micro Focus. They would have developed a wrapper on top of these mobile and Appium, so that's why they are trying to advertise it here. I'm surprisingly, there was something also called Catalan, which is again developed on Selenium engine. Again, a very. How many of you know previous tools like QTP or UFT, QTP, UFT, or Rational IBM? Any of the commercial tools that anybody familiar? So the difference that comes is in the open source, you have to download everything on your own and stitch it together to make a proper tool. But some of these commercial tools like Micro Focus, UFT, it's everything ready. All you have to do is just install the tool and record playback and start. Everything is inbuilt. But here you're going to learn, and we'll see we have to do all that together on our own. So then lately there is a company called Catalan. They came up with something similar to UFT on top of Selenium. So, but again, one way to know is if you don't want to do too much of a programming, you're not an expert in too much of a programming, or I need to just get done some test cases automated in a very quick way. Those things are okay. But again, the company-wide adoption is majorly people expect you to at least know from a Selenium perspective, Selenium libraries perspective, and how to use that perspective. If you learn at this level, using of these expiry tests or using of those tools like Catalan and other tools, it's just like a cakewalk for you. So you're learning it on the kernel level right now, on the actual engine and library level. Then learning on wrapper is like very easy. Okay, so that's why we are basically concentrating on this. Cool. With this, so here is the main website. From here, we are going to do everything: download the website and download the Java components and integrate all of that. But before that, let me just quickly walk you through. Okay, I think I'll be sharing all these documents. So okay, so very quick introduction about this. As we have been talking about, Selenium is a open source, mainly for functional testing. So testing is in many areas, as we all know. We have like no, for everyone who are of members, you will get the document. Okay, don't worry on that. It's basically for a functional testing. Okay, so remember, like we have functional testing, non-functional testing, like load testing, performance testings. Security, I don't want to consider anymore as a different. Security is also part of functional testing. So we have very different type of testing. What is the purpose of this Selenium tool is mainly for functional testing. Okay, and it's mainly for web applications. It's not for Windows applications. It's basically for web-based applications. Web-based applications on different browsers. It could be like IE, it could be for Chrome, it could be for Firefox, it could be for Edge browser, any different browser, and on any different operating system. It could be on Windows operating system, Linux, Ubuntu, or Linux, or Macintosh, any operating system. Because if you look at the similar tools, like as we talked about HP UFT, they majorly focuses on like the majorly focus was on like Windows applications as well as web applications, but to an extent it was majorly supporting Windows applications first, right? So this is mainly for web applications and different browsers and different operating systems. Okay. And as just now we have explained why somebody will go for an automation testing, it's mainly for regression testing, retesting. You tested something and you wanted to repeat it quickly, then you go for an automation. You tested something and there is a bug fix happened, then you wanted to test the impacted cases, then you will go for regression testing. So these are some of the cases why people choose automation. One is regression testing, retesting. No, I don't want to go and test in all the browsers manually. So I'm hoping some automation should help me there. That's like a browser compatibility testing. I write the code in one browser, and the same code I wanted to run it on different browsers, maybe with 1 or 2 lines modification or sometimes no modification. Then you will go for automation. The other one is OS compatibility testing. I have written the code on Windows operating system. I wanted to run the same code on Unix, Linux, Macintosh operating system. So those are some of the reasons why generally we'll pick up automation. And if you get to the history of the Selenium, if you're wondering, is it something new tool or is it going to be there for next 2-3 years? When is this really introduced and all that? Here is a history for you. To be frank, the first version came in like 2004, so which is like 15 years back. So when UFT was so popular and people are actually using that, in the background, there's work going on here, but not very active. A 1.0 got released by a company called ThoughtWorks. ThoughtWorks is still a great company today. They really do good work today. And this was released by ThoughtWorks company in 2004. And the first person who has written this was like a Jason Huggins. Then again, it's open source, so you need obviously funding and contributions to invest the time and all. Then it was not taking much. So in 2010, like precisely 9 years back, Google took over this, and of course Jason Huggins is still major contributor. They released a 2.0 in 2010. Okay, and he is a lead developer from Google. And today's version I just showed you. Don't go with what you see there. This is the latest version, and from there it's very actively people are using it, and now it's very active, and there are a lot of versions getting released every month and every sprint that they are working on. So it's very active now. Now coming to the components, what are the different components that makes up a Selenium suite? We call it as a Selenium is not a single tool; it's a Selenium suite. And what are the different components that you see is there's in 1.0, actually you can forget, you don't need to know all these things, but I'm just like, you might search on something Google and then you might get an example on a RC, and if you start spending time there, then you're actually wasting your time. So to just give you and what are the deprecated components and all that, I'm just putting it here. These are 1.0 components. There was an IDE tool, it's called Integrated Development Environment tool, a simple recording and playback tool. Even we have today, we're going to start with that, but in a different version altogether. So there is an IDE tool, and there is something called remote controller. So in the beginning, when he developed 1.0, the architecture he took was little. I mean, that time that was the best that he thought. The architecture he made it like there is a client and there is a server. Client will trigger the scripts on the server side, and the server will initiate the triggering. So it's a little bit complicated architecture, and that's why they call it like a remote control architecture. So it's totally deprecated now, so you don't need to worry about that, or you don't need to. If you find any examples on the internet related to RC, don't even look into it. Then for parallel testing, like I've been saying, if I have 100 test cases, I want to run them parallelly, 25 on one, 25 on one, 25 on one, like that into 4 sets in 4 nodes with the different combinations, with the different operating system, different browsers. Then you'll go for grid. So initially he developed that grid, and that version we call it as a grid 1. And what we have today, even in Selenium 3.0, it's a grid 2.0. I think yeah, let me confirm on that. There is a recent grid 3.0 is also released. So, but the purpose is same. The purpose is same that this is what it is. So I wanted to run all the test cases parallelly on different combinations of operating systems and browsers. Then you'll go for grid. Okay, in 2.0, what happened is that this RC is completely deprecated, and he came up with something called WebDriver. So this is what we are going to learn today, even in 3 point whatever the version we have. Uh, so Selenium WebDriver is the major component, and then we have this grid is another component for parallel testing. So in a way, if you look into this picture, ID is still there, by the way, but I'll tell you in a different form it's available now, but ID is still there. RC and WebDriver. Previously, he also had a WebDriver, but now that is more like combined. RC is integrated into WebDriver, and we call it like Selenium 2.0. So, but all you need to do is you will need to interact with WebDriver only, and you don't need to worry about RC at all. And then you have grid. So in one line answer, if somebody asks you what are the different components of Selenium, then you will say Selenium ID is one component, WebDriver is another component, and Selenium grid is another component. That's all. Okay. So basically RC and WebDriver merged together into 2.0. Any questions? Team, any questions before we move on? Quick yes, no will help. Okay, ANT is also not very active. Okay, so somebody has a question. What is ANT, AJAX, Selenium SVN? ANT again, like Maven, right? The way we are going to use Maven, before Maven, ANT was used. So you can forget about ANT also now. AJAX is a technology, and if there are AJAX controls, there were problems in the Selenium tool identification of those controls. So that's why there are a lot of examples. You'll find it on the internet related to AJAX and how to do it. SVN is again a kind of central repository management thing. So whatever is latestly applicable on 3.0, only we are going to talk about it. But you will find in the internet things like this for sure. No, if it is just 3.0 is same like 2.0, then there won't be any difference. There are again the same thing, like to take care of these latest technologies. There is a lot of new, for example, a browser is going through a change. Your Java applications are going through different changes. To support that also, sometimes they have to, for example, what happens, you develop a script in 3.141, whatever, right? And tomorrow there is a new operating system version comes, new browser version comes, and then your script starts failing that, right? So then what happens, automatically you need to, Selenium people have to fix that and give a new version to support that. So sometimes there are enhancements on the Selenium itself. So if there is a new version comes, sometimes they have to just do for supporting the new version of the operating system or a browser. So then also a new version comes. There is a plan. So Rizwan is asking like any plans for training on Protractor tool for testing of AngularJS based applications. There is a plan. Probably after this will take it up. Okay, so again, Node.js, those are the different new technologies that came, Angular applications. So to support them also, to an extent, they have to add some more libraries. Okay, here is a quick difference between Selenium and the classic. You can think of QTP, UFT with any commercial tool. Selenium is an open source. I mean, to be frank, feels like I don't have a plan, but we were thinking in the brainstorming every week with all the trainers like me, Karthik sit together. What are the next things to do? This is there. Like Protractor is one of them. Cypress is just coming up, so we are waiting to see what's going to come there. First, we have to get our hands dirty, before anything else, right? So we are in that phase with respect to Cypress. So Selenium is an open source tool and free to use. Anybody can pick it up, whereas UFT is a commercial tool, so you need to procure a license for a periodic like 1 year, 2 years, and then you need to keep on renew it. But we cannot still discount it. Like there are good 20%, 30%, big enterprises still uses UFT or commercial tools like rational tools. So that is still there. But a lot of startups, big enterprises also, which encourages open source, they are going to use Selenium. Selenium supports all the browsers like IE, Firefox, Chrome, Opera, Safari. But whereas in this, because most of you said UFT, so the comparison is here. It was mostly on IE, but later, of course, they have built plugins. You have to get some extra plugins installed to support other browsers. And Selenium supports all the operating systems, and it was majorly UFT was on Windows. I'm not following up on that much, but later they would have released any new versions to support it on other operating systems, but mainly it was on Windows. And coming to languages, it was supporting only VBScript or JavaScript. Altogether, you have to learn it separately. For example, your company is developing application in Java, but to use UFT, your team has to be an expert in either VBScript or JavaScript to automate it. But here, you can use the same technology expert, the same Java, and automate it in the Selenium. And similarly, if your company is using C#, you can use the same C# for your automation. Same with Python, Ruby. So these are all the different, I just showed you here, all the languages that is supported is there in the website. Selenium is extendable and flexible. This is another example where I showed you these are the 3 tools are the best examples, how people extend it. Robot Framework is a tool framework developed on top of Selenium engine. UFT supports web applications. I did not say web applications it not support. It supports on Windows platform operating system. UFT, not UFT. UFT first version, that is 6.5 itself supports web, which is released in 2002. So I used from 2002 almost 10 years UFT. So it was web applications. It was supported in 2002, which is like UFT 6.5. It was QTP. It's not even UFT at that time. It's called QTP 6.5 version, released in 2002. So I'm not talking about web-based. It's basically I'm talking about Windows platform. How this extensible is like, Robot Framework is one example where they have used the Selenium engine and developed wrapper on top of that. Karthik and the team in Varkasa INC developed AnyAUT on using the Selenium engine. Catalan Studio is one example. People are developing. There's so many tools came on Selenium engine, and that's because of this. Mainly, it's reason that it is extensible. So people can take that open source library and write and ROM on top of that as a wrapper and make it as a separate tool. Of course, maybe you wanted to charge your clients or make it open source, that's a different story, but people did it. UFT, you cannot really do it. You cannot extend what is there in UFT or any of the commercial tool. All you have to do is you can use the tool the way it is. Of course, there will be different plugins and you have to just use the way it is. You cannot extend it. And it supports mobile devices testing as well, but it's altogether a separate component called Appium, which is not again scope of this discussion, but it supports mobile devices as well, which is like an Appium library. There is a separate library, and if you totally work on that, you can actually work for mobile devices. This was also supporting to an extent, but again they had to integrate with a third-party software. The only limitation that you can think of for Selenium is only for web applications. So if you have any Windows applications, you cannot automate this. Whereas this can be used for both Windows and web applications. And do not expect any official support, but I can actually tell you it's a lot better than we started. When I started 7 years back, it was really hard to find if you get into any issue, troubleshooting an issue or trying to waiting for the team to give the fix and all. It was like really taking. But today the community is so big. Just post a question and there are a lot of conferences do happens on an annual basis and in different parts of the world. There's so much of community already there for Selenium, so that is no more a question now. Even the way, but whereas in commercial tools, what happens, since you're paying them, you'll obviously just click off a mail, sending off an email, they'll come and help you in troubleshooting. So you need to consider these things. One is the cost, because Selenium is totally free. Flexibility, we can extend it. Parallel testing, again, you can use the grid for parallel testing. So these are some of the things which will stand apart from other commercial tools and why people pick it up. Okay, so we need some basic things to be installed on some of the browsers to start with it. We'll start with that probably tomorrow. So we'll get into the practical part of it using the IDE. But again, I'm not going to use a Selenium IDE because the Catalan team has really done a good job on the IDE front, and that's why Selenium people also stopped enhancing that IDE. So rather than picking up a Selenium IDE, which is a little older and was supporting only certain aspects, there is a better IDE which is available from the Catalan. So we're going to use that. So it's a simple Chrome extension that they have done. So here is the one. This is a kind of an IDE tool that I'm talking about, Catalan Automation Recorder. So it's the same. Even people who have seen Selenium IDE, everything looks like that. Since Catalan team is doing better enhancements, the Selenium community stopped. There were some fixes and it broken at one point of the time, and then this team has picked up in doing the tool. So the Selenium community is not doing any job there. So this is a tool that is majorly available. We'll start with this tool tomorrow. We'll spend some 2 good days playing around and understanding, and there are different ways you can export the code into different formats like C#, Java, of course the Catalan format, and Python format, robot framework, Ruby format. So we'll talk about this and the actual TestNG format or a WebDriver format, which is ready for our Selenium. So we'll talk about these and the tool for the next 2 days, and then we'll start with Selenium WebDriver. That's where we are going to do an Eclipse. Kind of Eclipse is a development environment. We'll install Eclipse, we'll install Java, and then we'll start configuring the stuff. So does the plan sounds good for the next 3 to 4 days to start with IDE and then get onto WebDriver? All right, I'm still going in a slow phase because there are a lot of new folks joining in. Want to take them apart. Then we'll probably start when we really start with WebDriver, then it'll be in a better shape. Okay, I'll ensure Chandana team emails you with the recorded videos in an email link. They have already been uploaded into YouTube, but if you have any difficulty in finding it, we'll ensure the email comes to you with the links. All right. Any other questions? Thanks, everyone. See you tomorrow for the day 2, starting with the IDE. Yeah, I'll share the docs too. I really don't have any info on the prizes. I'm just like, I would say a contributor for just coming and taking up these sessions. So please write an email to learn@itlan.com. Team will reach back to you. Thanks, everyone.